Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So, guys, before we get going, and as always, please do subscribe both channels, EEARTS and Evolutionary Energy Arts. We still got 5 more days before we can post anything over on Evolutionary because of another copyright strike. And literally, we had one coming clean on the 7th of September. And then we get one on the 8th. They were just waiting for it to come clean so they could find something else to give us a strike about. They're such diabolical little demons, aren't they?
They have their ways.
They sure do. And just for everybody out there that is one of the people that we work on a fairly regular basis, or maybe even first time, if you haven't been able to get through the phone to us, or we haven't been able to get to you, it's because we got a new phone for contacting people. And this phone has not been able to get all the contacts put on it. So we were kind of switching from an iPhone to an Android, and now we can't get all of our contacts. So please do text us if you missed an appointment. We've tried to basically reach out via email to contact everybody that was on the schedule to notify.
And if I don't reply to you, please send an email, because there's something about the receiving sending that's just not working.
Yeah, something about that Apple and Android interface that doesn't seem to be working. We do sessions on Skype. We still have a Facebook Messenger that we use as well. We can also use Signal and WhatsApp as well. So please do reach out to us again via Telegram. And please do reach out to us again if we've missed your appointment, and we do apologize, as this has been very frustrating, but it's part of the technology. I do think they tend to make it to frustrate.
They sure do.
So Cindy was doing a channeling during meditation, and she started writing down a whole bunch of notes that we are going to go over, as there's always information coming out. Some of it is information that we've had out before in various videos, others brand new info. So we want to share this with you guys, and it comes from the Archangels. You were actually working with Archangel Raphael and Archangel Metatron.
Yes. So the information that comes through, it is, it has to be processed through the human body. So a lot of this information is coming through frequencies that are readable through the human form, and there's a lot more to these entities than meets the eye. They see a lot more, they know a lot more, they definitely want to help and assist, but always keep in mind they're not going to interrupt our human experience. They reach us in different ways, mostly through the heart chakra, mostly so that we feel things, and then we do things in accordance to our feelings. So basically getting this information is doing like an outline of the Mahabharata. There is so much information here, but it's just coming in pieces. And this is information that I never got out of books. I didn't read it. I can't hardly absorb any information. So it's information that comes through me, and I want people to know we can all do that. We can all do that. We can all tap in to this energy of existence, because we are all. It's just what it is. So there is things you can do to get more sensitive to this information and bring more in. But a lot of people don't know how to do that. So maybe they don't want to, and that's okay. So this is what came in today.
So we've been talking about Tiamat in previous videos, and there's always great questions that come up, a lot of comments about our reality, the different alien species, the archangels themselves. One of the things that's been mentioned several times when Sandalphon came through, and Sandalphon is a major guide of ours, is that he called them his brothers. So they very much view each other as brothers, the archangels. And when we say that, I can say specifically by name the four: Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, and Metatron Sandalphon. I believe others as well would be considered brothers. I don't know if you've gotten any other names.
Not yet, but it'll come.
Okay, because there's many others by many, in other traditions. When we think of them, they always show them with feathery wings, but the reality is, again, these are light beings. These are beings of very, very high frequency and vibration. And again, there's all these different levels, we should say, to consciousness. And so these beings are very, very high up. And so much, we got to realize everything we get in the mainstream is a distortion. It's pretty obvious when you come to understand that you can't trust the mainstream media, you can't trust the politicians. The entire power structure of the planet is not about helping humanity, it's about controlling, managing, and manipulating humanity. Well, obviously, what we're going to get in our mainstream traditions is not going to be the truth. It's going to be distortion, because this is how they control us. They control us through the money system. They control us through political means. They control us through the religions as well. And they've touched on pretty much all the major religions and influenced them to degrees. Many people are waking up to this now and starting to understand it. So again, when we see this is just something for us to conceptualize. It's not really the reality. Although if you took away the clarity of the human figure, and you took away the wings themselves and turned it more into blending with the light, that might be a little bit more accurate.
That's a lot more accurate.
Absolutely. And we see them as these gigantic beings. It's interesting that we have all these references to gigantic beings. Some of that's DNA memory, some of it's trauma, and some of it's remembering these beings who in some cases were actually us incarnating on Tiamat. And Tiamat, well, what's left of Tiamat is Earth. And in the Sumerian story, it's Marduk, who is an Anunnaki, who is the son of Enki, by the way, who ends up slaying Tiamat. Now, Tiamat's made to be a dragon. So it's Marduk, the son of Enki, an Anunnaki, slaying the dragon. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Nope.
No, it's absolutely a distortion. So when we see that the Sumerian stories vastly predate the biblical ones, yet again, they're written from the Anunnaki, Ijiji, Draconian AI point of view.
And that's really, really important to them, that they have all of the aspects covered when it comes to learning about who we are and where we're from. It absolutely needs to be outlined. And there's very little out there that is of a true, legitimate nature. If it's a book that's been published for a very long time, look at our Bible. That's like the most published book of all time. It's everywhere, and they expect us to go out of that and out of that only, and do not go and look in other sources, or you're a bad person. Your soul is going to burn in hell. And that's something that really bothers me, that they teach even small children.
Yeah, it couldn't be any farther from the truth. Now, the vastness of these beings, the true archangels, is enormous. And they do work with creator gods. And yes, there are more than one creator god. Again, the universe is infinite. And, the multiverse, I should say, is infinite. And the universe, again, is but a single cell. One thing that is also something you'll find in every culture around the world is these beings that are referred to in many cases as the ancient and shining ones. These are teachers. These are guides. And these beings interact with humanity, and they will be interacting with us after the controllers and their system are removed from Earth, once more, they will be free to come and help us and guide us.
Mm-hmm. They are very benevolent beings. That's the key word there, is guide. And until the controllers are actually extracted, they have a very difficult time reaching us in many different forms, whether we see them in the 3D or whether we perceive them. Their information too is distorted, and it's difficult for them to teach us and guide us right now.
Absolutely. But they're well known in cultures all around the globe in myth and legend. But again, it's based on reality. So these are beings of a humanoid shape, but they are light-bodied beings. Yet we can see their form, and they take, of course, a pleasing shape because, again, you could view them also as shapeshifters, because anybody that is in fifth density, for sure, it has the ability to shapeshift, as do 4D beings as well. But these beings are benevolent ones. And many references have been made to the Book of Enoch, right? And again, this world is upside down. And really what we get from the Abrahamic tradition is especially upside down. So when you look at Genesis 6:1, and it gives you just a little blurb about giants, we could go into so much detail. It would take days, weeks, and years to cover all the detail of the giants, the different types of giants, the giants on Tiamat, the giants on Earth after the destruction of Tiamat and the rebirth of Tiamat as Earth. And it's the same thing with the various, what we'd have to call extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings that do interact with everyone on Earth. It's interesting too, because you might say, well, who was the original humans on Earth, so to speak? Because humanity was part of the original creation, the creation of the actual creator of this universe. Now, there are beings that we've referenced as the Anunnaki that have claimed that position. They've claimed those titles. They're not. I mean, yes, they have. Well, even terraforming is not really the word for what they've done to Nibiru, because they basically destroyed what was created naturally, and now it's an AI technological monstrosity, unfortunately. Again, every planet and every star is alive. It is consciousness. And so they've really destroyed what was a beautiful planet and brought misery to a beautiful entity.
Basically putting it on life support.
Absolutely. So these ancient and shining ones, when I read the Book of Enoch, it hit me that what they're doing with this is they're basically causing fear and dissension and trying to label these benevolent beings as those fallen angels. Again, they inverse everything. Everything we get from them, well, hey, the Bible itself says Satan is the master and the fountain from which all lies spring. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the adversary is that way. And we don't need it. We don't need the adversary or the system. So we've seen the Pleiades, and again, many beings went and took refuge as basically migrants with the Lyran Wars and the home planets of many humanoid beings wiped out during these wars, the bigger wars that have been ongoing, these galactic wars in the Pleiades and elsewhere. Many beings that came to Earth came from Sirius A and Sirius B. As you could see here, Vega, Sirius A, Sirius B, and a little representation of our sun there as well. And again, Lyra, if this is showing you how to find Lyra, the harp. Angels play harp. Well, angels come from Lyra, right? So to speak again. And here you can see a depiction of where that can be found. And you see Vega at some points in time as we go through our procession of the equinox. Vega can become the North Star. And it is one of the brighter stars. The Orion group of the Gosh, what was that again? Law of One, yes. That referenced the Orion group in a negative way. And Cindy was almost like, well, let's not put Orion up, but we should put Orion up because there is an influence from Orion on the planet, and it's not all negative. Again, there are good and bad people anywhere you look, so to speak. And again, it's a choice as to what are we going to feed? The dark side of our nature, the greed, the ego, and all that, or are we going to feed the benevolent side of our nature? And many beings can, quote unquote, repent of their ways at any particular time.
Yes, they can.
So the destruction of Tiamat, well, it did result in the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars, and then Earth was moved to a new position. And the consciousness of Gaia, which was the consciousness of Tiamat, is really what made the decision, because it was a more massive planet, and so there was a different set of properties for life that allowed it to be a little farther away from the sun, and then it decided to move inside of Mars's orbit and take its current position as the third planet from the sun.
So all of the DNA from Tiamat, it still exists in us and in Earth.
Yes. And, these wars might have looked a lot like something from a sci-fi movie. Absolutely. Even with things being used that are planet killers. That type of technology. And really, these wars are why the Galactic Federation, and people have brought up, well, now, is that the Galactic Federation of Light or the Galactic Federation of Worlds? That's another distortion coming in to confuse people, because again, at some point in time, you will see the Anunnaki out in front of you. And when you do, they're going to basically pose as the good guys. And they're going to get everybody ready to fight that they're going to say is the bad guys, but in reality is the good guys. Because again, they can't help it. They just are liars and inverters. They invert everything. And this is just their nature. Now, don't take the possibility of an AI singularity lightly, because it's happened to so many beings in many places, perhaps in other universes too. We were trying to get clarity on that. It is interesting that this dark energy that came in, which from what we get was actually created by the Draco, but now has enslaved the Draco. And the Draco, during the Lyran Wars, conquered, or you could say that the beings that we call the Anunnaki succumbed or gave in and joined those they were fighting, and became part of the singularity by taking the AI into them. And that's going on right now on Earth. This is the exact same thing going on Earth that happened in Lyra, what ended with the destruction of Lyra. Well, the Lyran planets, or Lyran planets, on which so many of our relatives were living. And so, they are a conquered species. And yet, if you ask the Anunnaki, they view themselves in a very, very high light. They view themselves as the aristocracy. They view humanity just like a vampire would view humans, as a food source, as a resource.
If we can look at things like if we have a farm and we have chickens and goats, and we care about them, and we might have our favorites and stuff, but still we perceive ourselves to be of a higher intelligence and just a higher form that simply knows better. And that's exactly how they view us. And the thing with them is they have no qualms saying it. They have no qualms saying, well, we're better than you, and that's why you're, in this position. And we simply are not. They're very matter of fact.
Absolutely. And like we said, they are planning to come back. And when they get here, just like the legends of Enlil saying there's too many humans, let's wipe them all out. We just need a manageable number. Whatever that number is, 500 million, 1 billion. Because they also, in the bigger scheme of things, they understand that when they take a human life in the 3D, that soul just basically jumps into 4D and stays in 4D for a while. Now, if they could take that soul and herd it into a pen that they've created that will only open to one of their planets for incarnation, then they've saved the herd. And right now, this herd would be getting a free pass out of the pen to true freedom, where they wouldn't be able to control us, they wouldn't be able to affect us. And they can't have that. That's not their way. So they trick humanity, they trick people into giving away their freedoms, into giving away their future, as they are herding people again into pens where they will incarnate into the same system that we would hope to escape. This is how dark and twisted it is. This is exactly what they have going on. And they have all bases covered. Because again, they've given us our mainstream religions. So, again, when you say, now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the who, my soul to keep, you're asking them to keep your soul so that you'll incarnate again into their matrix. Absolutely evil, but this is what we are facing.
And our biggest weapon is understanding. That's our biggest thing that we have to use. And with the knowledge of understanding, our knowing, our ability to heal ourselves and grow our soul and put ourselves under a divine path that we were once created to move along on this planet.
Absolutely. So again, that nameless, faceless, inhumane Borg is really what they want for all humanity. But the reality is, like when you call on the Archangels, you are calling on benevolent beings. We see the distortion when we read the first, part of Genesis. The first word, in the beginning, God created, but it wasn't God. God wasn't the word. It was the Elohim. And again, they represent themselves as the Elohim, when what we're talking about in the Elohim, the true Elohim, are benevolent creator beings. They're not the same beings that came here and altered DNA, that fused the second chromosome, that disabled so much of our DNA so that so many abilities became things we only had in the past. They only need a slave race that's so intelligent, just intelligent enough to follow their guidance. This is why they'd love to turn off that God gene in people too, so we wouldn't feel that connection to source.
What would a lot of people do if say their herds became really smart and all of a sudden they could fix their own fences, open their own gates, do a lot of things that we didn't think is possible, and the herds everybody's going everywhere, doing whatever they want. The farmer is going to feel like they need some control, or they're going to lose their energy source. They're going to lose their everything, because these creatures are figuring things out, how to just crawl over the fence if needed, dig a hole under through. They're now thinking like we are. Well, we are becoming that way. We are evolving to the point where we're finally understanding what we're really made of, and we're getting away, and people are going and doing their own things and figuring things out, and they don't like that.
Nope. Everybody, you make your own decisions, and that's fine. It is free will. Somebody had made a comment again saying it feels like the benevolent beings are putting as many restrictions on us as the controllers. No, the benevolent beings are just telling you there's a train coming down the track. You're on the track. You might want to step off. you could stay on that track and keep dancing all you want until you're splat, but they're just trying to give you a heads up. It's the same thing when we talk about the need for detoxing. I mean, they come through time after time talking about detoxing, build your immune system. Why? Because you're being poisoned. It's pretty simple. If you want to ignore it, that's fine. You just might find yourself another one of those stats where you say, man, why did they die? They were so young. And look at, they're not here. I can't believe it. I can't believe he's gone. Can't believe she's gone. We're seeing people left and right. There was many of us screaming from the rooftops, don't do it, when it came to a certain thing that all the sources, all the official sources were saying, you gotta, hey, you're going to be a horrible person if you don't do this because you're risking everybody's life. And we were the whole time screaming from the rooftops, not that, it's not our choice, it's your choice, but we wouldn't do it. I even said I would jump off a cliff before doing it because this single incarnation is not worth the possibility of getting stuck. And, again, many people have believed in these different paradigms, and unfortunately, they know that. That's why there are so many wolves in sheep's clothing telling you, don't worry, so-and-so's getting arrested. They're being taken away in ankle bracelets right now. Or this one's already gone. Yeah, that's just another clone. Well, it might be a clone, but nothing's happened. Nothing's changed in a positive way. And there's certain letters of the alphabet that people were following intently and were saying to them, they're only doing this so they know who to round up when it's time to round people up. They're just getting you to be vocal and put yourself out there, so they're going to just make their list. And when it's time, they're coming around and they're taking people away. And that's starting to happen right now. And so, many people, they just want things to happen for them so damn easily. They don't understand that you got to work at this. And when you're talking about ascension, it takes work, especially when we're constantly infected with this AI technology on purpose.
And let's take a look at the controllers versus a benevolent being. We have the controllers saying, oh, here, do this thing because it's going to keep you from being sick. You can volunteer to do it. You don't have to. But then if you don't do it, they step up and say, you really need to do this thing. And if you don't do it, you're going to be making a lot of other people sick. So they add a guilt trip. Well, when that stops working, they're going to add another nudge. Usually it's going to be some kind of inability to be out into the public, be out into the world and do normal things like go to games or go to concerts. And when that doesn't work, they're going to start to nudge with financial means. They're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until you do that thing that they say. Now, if we're talking about a benevolent being, they're simply going to turn the flashlight onto the path. Is there any consequences from them if you choose not to go down that path? There's absolutely none. They love you. They're going to watch you walk your path and love you regardless, but they do have a few things that they understand and can see that we can't. So they see things from a higher perspective, looking down, and they can light up a certain pathway for you. If you choose not to do that, that's okay. They're not going to be the ones that implement any, punishment on you.
So when we look at representations of the Anunnaki themselves, there's been comments where people have said that the Anunnaki are this race or that race. Well, again, the Anunnaki is a catch-all phrase for beings that were coming from the sky, coming down here, and basically imposing their will on humanity. And in the Hindu tradition, we call them asuras. And the benevolent ones, those shining beings of light in the golden age, those are devas. And so these asuras, these Anunnaki, they actually represent many different species, many different species, not just one, so they're not all one skin tone, they're not all one race, they're not all one species even.
No, there's so many different creations that we have going on. It would make your head spin. There's just a lot of different things that we can barely conceive of as far as, how they came here, who they are. Just keep in mind, a lot of this is kept from us, and it's very deliberate.
Look at what they're doing. Look at what the controllers are doing right now. To the extreme, they're dividing us. They're trying to create strife between people of different skin colors, people of different nationalities, people of different political ideologies, people of different backgrounds. It's all about creating strife, creating tension, distorting, controlling through these negative forces. So they want us focused, and it's so sad that some people, the first thing that comes to their mind is always going to be of one basis. So if it's somebody that's so pro-right that they view everybody, in a derogatory manner, irregardless that has any sort of left leaning. And we don't even break it down to which individual argument are you talking about, which individual topic are we talking about. It's all about just building hatred, building division, building rivalry. So, again, the bodies themselves, when we're talking 3D bodies, they're just vehicles. And, you've probably been a man, you've probably been a woman. About a third of you have been not human at some point in time, had incarnations as non-human beings. So these are just vehicles, so we shouldn't get all uptight about that, because also this is an artificial tension that's created when we are faced with the prospects of seeing beings. Like, if you were ever actually in the presence of a Draco, you probably would end up messing yourselves and need a change of diapers if you're a little one. Some of these beings are going to be shocking to see, absolutely shocking for many people, and will be uncomfortable to even look at. So, obviously looking at somebody of our own species that we're used to seeing humans, whether they are a pygmy or whether they're a giant or whether they're any color, any shade, that's nothing.
No, it's not. It's silly. These are spacesuits that we utilize to have our human experience.
But see, this is what they want. They want to create tension and arguments about anything but the topics that expose them. That's why they're doing all this. When we see these depictions of some of these deities from other ages, and they might be very, very humanoid in body, but then have the head of a lion or a bird or a dog or something else. There really are beings out there that are like that. There really are. And it is going to, again, be very, very freaky when the time comes to see them. And so many from Sirius and in Syrian, we can also see many that have a feline aspect, but then also canine. So getting to the bigger picture, so to speak, it is said in the Sanatana Dharma that we're living in the dream of God. We are living in God's dream. So we're literally living in the mind of God as God is dreaming about all these different possibilities. Now, we're talking there about a true creator God, because what we've seen in, say, Star Trek and some other sci-fi movies where they go around and they find a planet that is close to being perfect for life, but just a little bit off. Maybe they nudge it into a new location, and maybe they introduce something. Maybe they introduce some oxygen. Maybe they introduce some other elements that are missing, and then they get it up and running where life can start to flourish in this new environment. And then they actually seed life, watch it, make sure it's going good for a while, and maybe that little while is literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of years. Because again, it is said that the life of Brahma and Brahma is thought to be the creator god in some Hindu traditions, is 4.32 billion years. That's a long life. But again, that's basically equating to the age of our sun. And, time is relative to the beings, and humans live much, much longer in the other ages than we do in the Kali Yuga. So once everything's up and running, they leave and they let it do its own thing. And they could check in from afar. They can see what's going on from afar. And again, there are the creator gods who have this idea of a great fun project where consciousness can come and explore and try to experience new things. And that's what we are. We're consciousness experiencing a human life. As you see the god Vishnu dreaming the universe, the god Brahma sits on the lotus coming out of his navel. Notice the snake is the same one that protected the Buddha. Many Hindus believe Buddha was an avatar of the god Vishnu. He is being served by his consort Lakshmi. And, again, when we look at the evidence that's all around us, you see the way the universe looks. If we look far out there, it's teeming with all these stars. And yet you look at an individual brain cell and the neural network, and it's a reflection of it. As above, so below, the vascular network of a human with leaves. And then again, going out into the stars and seeing how they're all interconnected, and the birth of a cell, the death of a star, all these things. The shape of the human energy field is a torus. So is the shape of the Earth's energy field. So is the shape of the galaxy. So is the shape of the universes. This is as above, so below. So the physical universe is a closed system, sort of. But yes, what we get with beings like the Archangels, again, they come here to help create. But are they limited to this particular creator God's universe? Or do they actually do this in other universes as well?
No, they're not limited. They are beings that have such a vast ability to work with different energies and different elements. They tend to work here. They tend to work with us, but not in the way that we might understand. So that's where they rely on going through the heart chakra to give understanding. And they work through elements like, for example, water, and work through other things like plants to express their understandings and to work with you, through you, and help you along on your path.
Absolutely. And again, this is a fractal universe, and perhaps it's actually a fractal multiverse. And that's the way things run throughout all systems. When we, again, think about beings like the Archangels, it is possible for them to take an incarnation, but that would only be a tiny little fraction of their consciousness. Just a little piece of it. Again, think about capturing one ray of the sun, so to speak, and taking that ray, making it denser, and making it a vehicle so that one ray of the sun could have a life on Earth, for instance, in order to influence it from the inside. And so just like the concept of avatars in Vishnu, it's said as 10 different incarnations, Shiva, a multitude of incarnations. It's the same thing with, again, the Archangels. And so Sandalphon had said to me, I remember when he first stood foot on the earth, but then the earth was Tiamat when he came here with his brothers, because they did take bodies, not all of their consciousness, a tiny little fraction, a little spark of their consciousness, because the entirety of their consciousness is too much to encapsulate in a vehicle that could experience this reality.
They are beings of such an extraordinary nature, and we are beings who chose to come and have an experience through this vessel that's definitely limited so that we can access certain experiences for certain enhancements. But then we have to remember we were also altered yet again to be better forms for energy for a different type of controlling mechanism.
So even when you get a being as vast as an archangel coming through the gateway of what is the being that we would call Vishnu in the Vaishnavite tradition, and Vishnu is the name that we got because that the creator of this particular universe felt that we were most comfortable with that particular name. So again, called other things in other traditions. But everything is going to have his, that particular creator's energy signature to it. So in a way, Vishnu is alive in every single one of us. The creator being of this universe is alive in every single one of us because we're in his universe. So that's just a given. I and the Father are one. There you go. That's explaining it. Yet we're all unique aspects. And some of us are of lineage that is not even from this particular universe. And again, there is one source, but many of us have had lives on other planets, other star systems. Some have even had conscious experiences of other universes entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now we're reaching a point where we can understand that when it comes to space travel, we don't need to get in a machine and go anywhere. That can happen within ourselves. We can take ourselves to different areas, different planets, different locations. Bilocation is a very real thing. And since we're in the dark ages, just that knowledge is kept from us. And therefore, we don't even really know how to practice it. But some people do it. It just happens to them because of past life influence. And a lot of people have other abilities that just happen to them. But since we weren't exposed because the controllers want to keep this a secret, we don't always know what's going on.
So, those that think about the flat earth, so to speak, when you look at a cell from above and say you're looking under a microscope, of course a cell on a petri dish is going to look flat, right? But the reality is it's not flat. And here you can see there's water within, there's water without. But there are barriers, and we actually see that it actually appears kind of roundish. The cell membrane, the firmament, is selectively permeable. Some things can pass through, others can't. And again, as above, as below. So how do we know the way the earth is? Because just look to that phrase, as above, so below. Knowing it's a fractal universe, yeah, it's just like the cell membrane. There's intracellular water or fluid, and there's extracellular water or fluid. Things can pass through. Just look at the fetus developing inside the womb of its mother, and yet it's in this sac. That's all fluid, all filled with fluid. There's fluid within, there's fluid without. And this is your as above, so below. So yes, the earth is basically roundish, and yes, space is not a pure vacuum. No, space is teeming with life and the potential for life. And actually, when Cindy was channeling Vishnu, he did equate it to water of a sort. But that doesn't mean there's an impenetrable firmament that nothing could get through. Again, it's throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Is there creation? Absolutely. Is there evolution? Absolutely. Not Darwinian evolution, but evolution, yes. So again, when you look at the earth and you see the atmosphere protects us. We're inside. We're able to breathe. Without the atmosphere, then obviously life wouldn't be working here. It wouldn't be happening. But it's here, and the earth is where it is because of a divine purpose, because it's meant to be a vehicle for life.
Mm-hmm. It's divine understanding, having that knowledge that we are very important and we are all one. So these things that hold us together, are the very things that the controllers use to try to tear us apart. You know, the differences in one another, they try to needle that in and make people be irritated at our own differences. But we need to understand those differences are divine and they're unique.
Absolutely. And, you know, again, sometimes there's people that just can't understand. You don't believe in the Bible, so you don't believe in God. No, I think the Bible's distorted, and there's probably much more deception than there is truth. You have to go digging for truth. But that doesn't mean we don't believe in God. We know there is a creator of this universe. We have no doubts. And it's not through basically using our left brain and saying, well, logically, I think. No. This is a knowing because we've experienced an interaction with the being. And anybody could. It's just a matter of taking the time to develop the ability to go within. And that's why it is worth the time. It really is. As always, guys, thanks for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi. We couldn't do it without your support over there. Do check out Medicinal Foods. There's a link on every video. Lots of good stuff to help you detox. Use coupon code EEA. Does support the channel and give you a discount. A discount. Much love. May you guys be blessed by the benevolent beings that are always watching.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.